In number 1, we want to simplify this product. Now we could multiply 3 times 21 and then simplify, but we could also notice that 21 has a factor of 3. 21 is 3 times 7, and so we can write the square root of 21 as the square root of 7 times the square root of 3. And then let's copy over this square root 3. So we have two square root 3's in a row. Square root 3 times square root 3 is 3. So this is equal to 3 times square root of 7. So that's a little bit nicer way to simplify because we avoid the step of multiplying and then factoring. All right, this is partially factored, so we just factor some more. And number 2, again, we want to simplify. So rather than multiply 35 times 77, we notice that 35 has a factor of 7, and 77 also has a factor of 7. So let's write 35 as the square root of 5 times the square root of 7. And let's write 77 as the square root of 11 times the square root of 7. And then the square root of 7 times the square root of 7, well, that's equal to 7 outside the square root. So we multiply that to get 7. And now we just have to multiply square root of 5 times square root of 11. And we do that under the square root. And we get the square root of 55. Let's look at square root of 10 times square root of 14. Let's see, 10 has a factor of 2 and 14 also has a factor of 2. So let's write square root of 10 as square root of 2 times square root of 5 and 14 as square root of 7 times square root of 2. So both of them have a factor of 2. Let's multiply square root of 2 times square root of 2, and we get 2 outside the square root symbol. And then multiply square root of 5 times square root of 7 underneath the square root, and we have square root 35. So 2 times square root 35. And then before we want to simplify, and I suggest divide first if you can, so that the numbers get smaller. So let's divide 30 divided by 3. So we end up with square root of 35 times square root of 10. And now we want to simplify this product, and we notice that 35 has a factor of 5, and 10 also has a factor of 5. So let's factor square root 35 as square root 5 square root 7, and square root 10 as square root 5 square root 2. Alright, so we're going to multiply square root 5 times square root 5 to get 5 outside the square root symbol. And then we're going to multiply square root 7 times square root 2 underneath the symbol, and we have square root 14. In number 5, let's start by dividing 3 into 15. So we have square root 55 in the numerator, and 3 into 15 is 5. So here we have square root 5. We're dividing underneath the square root symbol. And in the numerator, we have a factor of 5 in square root 55. So let's factor that as square root 11 times square root 5. And now let's copy over this square root 5 next to it. Square root 5 times square root 5, that's equal to, if we multiply that, we just get 5. So we have 5 times square root 11 over 5, and divide top and bottom by 5, and this is equal to square root 11. In number 6, we'll start by dividing 7 into square root 70. Alright, so we have in the numerator square root of 110, times the square root of 10. Okay, we did that division. And then we have this 10 over here. Square root of 110 has a factor of 10. Let's factor that as square root 11 times square root 10. Now let's copy over this square root 10 next to it. Square root 10 times square root 10 is equal to 10 outside the square root symbol. We can cancel out these 10s and we get square root 11. Number 7, we're going to use a theorem called the Pythagorean theorem, which gives us a relationship between the sides of a right triangle. And here it is, a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. And it's important to note that c is always the side opposite the right angle. C is actually the largest side. The side opposite the right angle is the largest side. So let's apply this here. We want to find out what x is. All right, so x is not c. This is c. It's important to realize which side is c. 10 is opposite the right angle, so 10 is c. All right, so we're going to write that this side squared plus this side squared is equal to this side squared, like the Pythagorean theorem says. So we have x squared plus 7 squared is equal to 10 squared. All right, or x squared plus 49 is equal to 100. All right, let's figure out what x squared is. Let's subtract 49 from both sides. So we have x squared is equal to 51. All right, so that's not x, that's what x squared is, so x must be equal to the square root of 51. Okay, number 8, we have another triangle. This time, x is the hypotenuse, so x is c. So in this, we have this formula, Pythagorean theorem, and we're going to replace c with x. So this time we have 4 squared plus 8 squared is equal to x squared. We could also write x squared plus 4 squared is, 8 squared plus 4 squared. We can mix up the order of this addition. But we have to mark c correctly. All right, so in this case, c is equal to x. So here we have 4 squared, that's 16. 8 squared, 64. So we have 80 is equal to x squared. So x is equal to the square root of 80. Now we should simplify this if it can be simplified. So in this case, square root of 80 can be simplified. Right? We can factor that as the square root of 16. Square root of 16 times the square root of 5. And square root of 16 is equal to 4. So x is equal to, in simplified form, 4 square root 5.